Good evening. My name is Mark Lawrence. I'm the senior hearing examiner at the Delaware Public Service Commission. This is docket number 25-0826. It's commonly referred to as the Delmarva Power Large Load docket. The formal styling of it is in the matter of the joint petition of staff of the Delaware Public Service Commission and the Division of the Public Advocate regarding a large load tariff to be promulgated by Delmarva Power and Light Company. It was filed on August 28th, 2025. We have participants here in the commission room. We also have participants by Zoom. But I first want to begin by saying what this docket is not. This docket is not the Delmarva Power Electric rate case. That is a different docket, and this is not the public comment session for that case. There will be a public comment session for that case probably in the summertime. This is a different docket, and I want to give some background on this docket, and then I'll have the parties introduce themselves. On August 28th, 2025, there was a petition filed which opened this docket. The petition was styled Petition of the Public Service Commission staff and Division of the Public Advocate to require Delmarva Power and Light Company to promulgate a large load tariff for customers with a monthly maximum demand of 25 megawatts or more. On September 2, 2025, Delmarva Power filed its motion to intervene in this case. On September 3, 2025, the Commission orally granted Delmarva's petition to intervene. On October 15, 2025, the Commission entered Order Number 108-2029, granting Delmarva's motion to intervene in writing and holding as follows. Whereas to address concerns regarding increased electric transmission and distribution costs to existing ratepayers and reliability concerns, facilities that use a disproportionate amount of power, namely for customers that will use a monthly maximum demand of 25 megawatts or greater, need to be treated as a separate class within the current rate structure to protect reliability and other classes of ratepayers. The Commission further held in paragraph 2 that pursuant to the Commission's authority under 26 Delaware Code 301 subsection A, Delmarva Power shall develop and file proposed revised tariff pages applicable to large load customers defined as customers that will use a monthly maximum demand of 25 megawatts or greater. In that order, the Commission also appointed me as the hearing examiner. As to interveners, in addition to Delmarva Power, the following parties have intervened in this docket. Starwood Digital Ventures, the potential developer of Project Washington, the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control, DENREC, Constellation Energy Generation, LLC, Delaware Energy Users Group, DEUG, Walmart, Inc., the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 313, IBEW, and the Delaware City Refinery Company. On December 19, 2025, Delmarva Power notified the parties in the docket as follows. Delmarva Power's proposal is multifold. The company has proposed a new service class, GS-LD, applicable to large demand customers with a monthly maximum of 25 megawatts or greater. Second, the company has proposed implementing an application process and specific requirements for potential customers with a projected load of at least 50 megawatts, including requirements for a letter of credit, engineering studies, financial deposits, and financial guarantees. The overarching goals of these requirements are to protect Delmarva Power's customer base from financial risks and accurately plan for infrastructure development and investments. Finally, through these tariff changes, Delmarva Power seeks to meet the challenges and needs from large load growth in Delaware in a responsible and effective way. On January 12, 2026, notice of this public comment session was published on the Commission's website, and notice was also published in the Commission's DeLaFile computer filing system. I'd like the parties to introduce themselves at this point, and please spell your name for the record and for the court reporter as well. I'm going to begin with Delmarva Power and Light Company.
Good evening, Senior Hearing Examiner Lawrence Zishang Shen, Counsel for Delmarva Power. Spelling is Z-I-X-I-A-N-G, last name Shen, S-H-E-N. And with me in the room is David Gathai, and I believe we might have additional Delmarva Power colleagues on the line as well. Thank you.
How is David's name spelled?
David and last name Gathai, G-I-T-H-A-E.
Okay, thank you. Commission staff?
Kate Workman, Kateworkman, representing staff. And in the room, we have Tricia Gannon and Matt Hardigan.
Okay. Public advocate.
Andrea Moucher on behalf of the Division of the Public Advocate, and it's M-A-U-C-H-E-R.
As to the interveners, Starwood Digital Ventures. Okay, hearing no one. DENREC.
Matthew Littner, Counsel for the State Energy Office in DENREC, and that's M-A-T-T-H-W-L-I-N-T-N-E.
Constellation Energy Generation, LLC.
Jesse Rodriguez, Director, Regulatory Advocacy.
Delaware Energy Users Group. Walmart, Inc. IBEW, Local 313.
Bobby Murray, Business Manager, Local 313, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, representing Delaware Electrical Workers. Last name, M-U-R-R-I-A-N.
And good evening, Hearing Examiner Lawrence James Nutter, N-U-T-T-E-R, also representing the IBEW Local 313.
And the last intervener, Delaware City Refining Company. Okay. I wanted to point out first that written public comment in this case has been extended from March 6th to April 6th. And an email can be sent to psc@delaware.gov with the docket number 25-0826 in the subject line, or it can be filed in DeLaFile, which again is the Commission's filing system. When you're giving your public comment, please spell your name, the county you reside in, and your electric utility. Also, to help the court reporter, please speak up And for people that are in the room that are going to give a comment, I'm going to ask the commenters to come to the table there where you sign this sign-in sheet and speak into the microphone, both for the people in the room and the people that are on Zoom, and also for the court reporter. And also, the court reporter can only take down your words, so you can't shake your head yes or no, because she can only take down your words. And so for everyone on Zoom, you're going to be muted. And so what I'm going to do is that after I take the public comments of the people in the room, I'm going, just so the transcript can read as well as we can have it read, I'm going to begin with public comments from people that reside in Newcastle County, and then I'm going to go south to people that reside in Kent County, and then I'm going to go further south to people that reside in Sussex County. And so I'm going to begin now taking public comments in the room. And I think the fairest way is I'm just going to start in the first row. If anybody wants to give a public comment, please come to the table here in the front and take the microphone. You have to put the microphone near your mouth. And again, please spell your name and give the county you reside in and your electric utility. And then you can give your public comment. There's no limit on the time for your public comment here tonight, but please try to be as succinct as you can be.
Good evening. My name is Dale Swain, D-A-L-E, Swain, S-W-A-I-N. I reside in Newcastle County, and Delmarva is my electric supplier. When it was first talked about of having a large load tariff, we assumed that this would be put together by the PSC, the public advocate, possibly some of the legislatures, some of the parties involved, obviously, and the public in a series of meetings. I know that was the original intent of this, but then you let the fox guard the hen house, and having Delmarva come up with a supposed large load tariff, which is just taking their top category, renaming it, and it does not cover all of the costs that would be passed on to the public the way it is structured. There is transmission cost. There are stranded costs if they delay the project, and Delmarva goes on to set up and get the supply of electricity, and then the data center is put off for a couple of years. It really is not addressing what was intended, which was for the large data centers that could be using, for example, Project Washington, 1.2 gigawatts of energy, which is more than double the amount of users in the whole state as far as homes. We needed to have a tariff that would address all of the issues to ensure that the residents of the state would not be stuck with the cost, whether the data center walked away from the project, whether they started and stopped, or the cost of electricity went up because of the data centers. There's congestion cost, there's the transmission cost, obviously, there's the costs that are coming from the PJM. We need to ensure that since Delaware doesn't have enough power, if Delmarva allows the data centers to get power when we don't even have it yet, and supply and demand is going to dictate that the costs are going to go way up, we need to make sure that the data centers are paying their share. They should be footing the cost, or they should be providing their own energy. It would be much more preferable if it was set up so they're providing their own energy, obviously, instead of it having to come out of the public supply. A lot of states are doing this now or setting this up to happen. I don't know whether PSC even has that as an option to mandate, but I do know there is 2 bills in the state legislature. One is the House Bill 233 that will be creating a real large load tariff. And I think what the PSC is trying to do should be modeled after what they are suggesting to make sure that we truly have a large load tariff and not something that is very watered down and is not covering all the bases. So I know there's a lot of people in the state that either don't want a data center, period, but that's not going to be reality. We need to come up with ways to accommodate the data centers, but to make sure they pay their fair share, period. And then you have a win-win situation. Anything less than that is the residents that are getting screwed. And we need to make sure that we are taking care of the residents and allowing the data centers to move forward with proper controls in place. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, next comment. Anyone else in the first row?
Good evening. My name is Christopher Muntz, CHRISTOPHER. Last name Muntz, MUNTZ. I'm a resident of Newcastle County, and I'm a customer of Delmarva Power. From where I stand, this issue is about jobs, affordability, and whether Delaware chooses to compete or sit on the sidelines. Large load customers like data centers bring real measurable benefits to our state. They support our public schools, strengthen state and local government, and create opportunity that ripples far beyond tax revenue. At the start of this project, we're talking about thousands of construction jobs, real careers, apprenticeships, and training for Delaware workers. When these facilities open, they bring hundreds of high-paying jobs that work around the clock. That impact doesn't stop there. Independent analysis shows that every single data center job supports more than 6 additional jobs across the economy. Bringing large load customers into Delmarva's system diversifies the customer base and generates hundreds of millions in transmission and distribution revenue, helping to put downward pressure on electric bills. And with a strong 10-year revenue guarantee, ratepayers are protected and these companies pay their fair share. But timing does matter. The interconnection moratorium must be lifted, and this process cannot drag on. Every delay tells investors and job creators that Delaware is closed for business as we compete with Maryland, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania for these projects. If our policies are too restrictive, those jobs and those lower costs and that economic growth will go elsewhere. We can protect ratepayers and welcome responsible investment and create strong, high-paying jobs right here in Delaware. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person from the first row.
Good evening. My name is Michael Hackendorn, Michael, last name Hackendorn, Hackendorn. I reside in Newcastle County, and Delmarva Power is my electric provider. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Delmarva's customer base must diversify to reduce Delawareans' electricity bills. Large load customers can provide hundreds of millions of dollars in transmission and distribution revenue and can put downward pressure on rates. 10-year revenue guarantee is more than sufficient to protect our ratepayers, ensuring large load customers pay their fair share. Public Service Commission needs to act quickly and should not extend procedural schedules beyond the current proposals. Large load interconnection moratorium is in place until the tariff proceeding is complete, and we believe it should be lifted. Excuse me? Is in place until tariff proceedings are complete and must be lifted. Further delays sends a clear message to investors. Further delays, sends a clear message to investors and job creators. Delaware is closed for business. These proceedings cannot end with such a restrictive tariff that deters all large load customers from coming to Delaware. If these projects go to Maryland or New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware will miss out on lower transmission costs and significant economic benefits for our local economy and local jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. My name is Brad Beebe. I'm a resident of Newcastle County. Delmarva Power is my supplier. I would like to disagree with the testimony that's recently been introduced. The construction phase of Project Washington will not last 10 years. The construction phase of Project Washington won't last 5 years. It may go 2 years. And yes, in that 2-year cohort, there probably will be some jobs created. But let's be mindful of what we were promised with Bloom Energy. And now that's 750 jobs. And we're still on the hook for that. What the PSC needs to think about in its totality is fairness to the ratepayers. Starwood Realty Trust has all manner of tax code tricks, loopholes, and techniques that they can optimize to back out of a contract, expand the contract, ignore the contract. We shouldn't be on the hook for those kinds of machinations. The consumer should not be responsible for the large load. According to Pew Research, Project Washington looks at using 1.2 gigawatts of energy. That's the equivalent of about 700,000 homes. That's a kind of scale that this proposal at 25 kilowatts, 25 megawatts, 50 megawatts, just it's not even in the same ballpark. So it needs to be appropriate to the reality of the 21st century. Yes, I'm for economic development, but let's temper it. Let's make sure we have the appropriate guardrails in place, and let's take care of the entire population, not just whoever gets jammed down our throats. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter. Are we in row 2 now? Oh, no, in the room here, we're going by rows, and then on Zoom, we're going by county. Row 2 in the room. Remember to speak into the microphone, please.
Okay, I'm officially the entertainment portion of this. My name is Francis, Francis. Last name is Gavis, Gav as in Victor, AS. I'm a resident of Kent. I also own a farm in Newcastle County. My supplier is Delmarva Power Exelon. In terms of credibility, I just wanted to state about myself. I'm a Delaware native. I'm retired. I'm a scientist. I actually was institutionalized in Catholic schools for 12 years of my life. Escaped from Larchmere Academy in 1979, went on to the University of Delaware, have 3 degrees, 3 different sciences, and through a degree for world history. So that's a little bit about me. in terms of this, I was prepared to talk about the other one, so I'm glad you mentioned what the hell we were talking about here. So I've had to revise my thoughts a little bit. I want to applaud, I guess, Delmarva and Power and Exelon for approaching this with the tariff solution. However, I am a little bit skeptical as to how that's going to take place and how it's going to affect your average consumer, which I consider myself to be. And I've seen an incredible increase in the rates. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm also a little bit concerned about how the money from the tariffs will be allocated. Will it be allocated towards other development of other data centers? Okay. Will any of that money go to helping the people like myself who can afford to pay the increased rates, but don't necessarily want to? We know that these programs oftentimes benefit the LIHEAP program, which is for those people who can afford to pay the rates. But what about all of us who are stuck in the middle and having to basically deal with the rate increase? There is no fairness there. In that case, the energy is brown because we are the ones who get crapped on. The other thing that concerns me is from a developmental perspective, are we opening a floodgate for additional data centers? For example, craft brewing was great as long as there weren't a lot of people doing it, and then you had a lot of craft beer. And I don't want the state to get basically dissected by data centers, which are going to increase traffic and development, which is the last thing Delaware needs. We're sick of development. And I guess from the other perspective, well, I think that may be just about it. But I'm trying to remain civilized here. But I'm fearful of what this is going to bring to the state, and we'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Next commenter.
Good evening. My name is John Nichols, Johnnanichols. I live in Clayton, Delaware, Kent County. My current electricity supplier is the co-op. I'm going to expand my comments beyond just the data center because the docket doesn't indicate that that's the only thing we're considering. We're considering large load customers. I've fought for nearly 20 years for affordable and reliable electricity for Delaware families and businesses. I've intervened before the commissioners on behalf of ratepayers who deserve nothing less. I support this docket's core principle. Large new grid users like 25 megawatt data centers must pay their full interconnection and upgrade costs upfront, not shift those costs onto existing customers through socialized rate increases. That principle's sound, but it's being applied selectively, and that selective application is itself a ratepayer harm. I want to talk to you about solar. A data center pulls power one direction and pays for the grid capacity it demands. A solar generator pushes power the other direction and demands equivalent grid fixes, new lines, upgraded substations, voltage management equipment, yet solar developers pay only a fraction of those costs up front. The remainder is socialized across all ratepayers through base rate increases or renewable mandate charges. Ratepayers are subsidizing solar developers twice. First, Delmarva Power purchases solar renewable energy certificates to meet Delaware's RPS obligations, and those costs are recovered through a non-bypassable
Would you slow down a little bit?
I'm sorry.
So the court reporter can accurately take down your words.
I'm used to testifying in under 4 minutes.
No,
Thank you for the latitude you've granted.
Okay.
And I will slow down, but I anticipated to have to speak more rapidly.
Okay.
Let me start at the second paragraph, if I might. A data center pulls power one direction and pays for the grid capacity it demands. A solar generator pushes power the other direction and demands equivalent grid fixes, new lines, upgraded substations, voltage management equipment. Yet solar developers pay only a fraction of these costs. The remainder is socialized across all ratepayers through base rate increases and renewable mandate charges. Ratepayers are subsidizing solar developers twice. First, Delmarva Power purchases solar renewable energy certificates to meet Delaware's RPS obligations, and those costs are recovered through non-bypassable charges on every customer's delivery bill. No customer escapes it, regardless of their electricity supplier, that is to say, who they would be purchasing their electricity from other than through Delmarva. Second, the grid upgrade costs that solar development requires are spread across the rate base rather than borne by the developers who profit. Where does the developer's responsibility end, and where does the ratepayer's liability begin? The Commission should be able to answer this question clearly. Right now, based on my research, it cannot. Rural electric cooperatives, from whom I acquire my electricity, already understand this. They are refusing additional solar backflow because their distribution infrastructure cannot safely absorb it. Delmarva Power ratepayers face the same physical and economic reality and deserve the same protection. Large-scale solar imposes grid costs equivalent to large loads. Again, that's why I'm here. The Commission should recognize that large load is not limited to demand customers. Supply-side injections impose equivalent infrastructure stress through three distinct pathways. Industrial solar facilities in the 2 to 20 megawatt range require...
You need to slow down again.
I'm sorry. Industrial solar facilities in the 2 to 20 megawatt range require the same class of grid modifications as large commercial loads. Transformer upgrades, protection system changes, substation work. State SREC subsidies finance developer profits while grid upgrades costs flow to ratepayers. Community solar arrays, individually capped at 4 megawatts, aggregate in practice to function as a single large injection point on local distribution circuits, overloading infrastructure that was never designed for bidirectional flows at that scale. Notably, SB 2 from 2021, Delaware General Assembly, explicitly states it increases the maximum size of solar projects to 4 megawatts, confirming it was lower at a earlier time. But when the increase came about, there was no accompanying study as to what the cost would be with the increased solar arrays that were permitted in 2021 from some lesser amount to 4 megawatts. I couldn't determine exactly what it was before. I think it was 2, but I wanted to leave it open. Lastly, I want to talk about distributed solar, rooftop solar. Individually small, they accumulate neighborhood by neighborhood in concentrations that can exceed 25 megawatts with no systematic review of cumulative circuit impact, no cost allocation, and no accounting for the aggregate burden on distribution infrastructure. The General Assembly has already recognized this problem. Senate Bill 210 of the 153rd General Assembly, introduced December 18, 2025, and voted out of committee on January 28, 2026, amends Title 26, Section 10015, to require that community solar interconnections within the service area of a PSC regulated utility, precisely because co-op distribution infrastructure cannot handle the reverse flow. They want it within a regulated utility. That legislative recognition confirms what ratepayers are already experiencing. Notably, SB 210 addresses where community solar connects, but leaves unresolved who pays for the grid upgrades it requires. The cost accountability question is squarely before this Commission now. The fix is straightforward. Apply this docket's rules consistently. Solar installations above 2 megawatts should be subject to the same requirements this Commission is considering imposing on large demand customers: full upfront payment of interconnection upgrade costs, and citing requirements that avoid circuits already operating near capacity. Consistent cost allocation does not obstruct renewable development. It ensures that the costs of renewable development are borne by those who profit from it, not by the families and small businesses who simply need reliable and affordable power. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Did you hand the court reporter a copy of your notes?
Indeed, I did, sir.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next commenter. Good evening.
evening. My name is Dora Williams, and I am a,
You're going to have to speak up. Okay.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was.
Into the mic.
Okay. How's that? That
That's
better?
fine.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Dora Williams, and I am a Delmarva customer. And I too have to adjust my comment because I thought that we were talking about Delmarva rate hikes, but I see now that maybe the PSC is very instrumental in both. And I think there's been 3 people who has commented on, was it House Bill 233 and also 205, which gives PSC its authority. So the one thing I'm going to say is that I am urging the PSC to be fair and to residents as well as data centers. And I'm urging that the PSC does require a class difference between residents and large load carriers. So that's all I have to say is that, please, whatever you do, be fair to Delawareans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter.
Yes, hello. My name is Rob Bullock, president of the 913 Community Alliance Coalition. Exelon is my supplier, and that's across 3 states, and also in Baltimore. But the thing is, I did want to mention the fact that about the jobs. I'm for jobs as well, but I'm for the SB 205. The jobs, I think that we're sort of being gaslit by the unions heads because they are just looking at jobs that will be explosive in the beginning of when they building the infrastructure for this hyperscale data center, the Washington project. But there's only going to be a few jobs after the smoke clears. In other words, the jobs is not commensurate with what is required to develop that to develop that campus, that project. It's not on equal footing. In addition, they want to put the bill of developing that infrastructure on the ratepayer. It is unfair. As I understand that I support the HB 233 is a fair pricing bill. SB 205 gives the PSC permission and the veto power. The docket number 25-0826, the large load bill, I call it, is gives the PSC the ability to prevent cost shifting. It is unjust and unreasonable for Delmarva Power to request any increases in the rate hike from families while simultaneously seeking to add gigawatts of data center load that will require hundreds of millions of grid upgrades. And then they want to foot that bill to us. In conclusion, Delaware is at an energy crossroads, which we understand. We cannot allow our seniors on fixed incomes and working families to fund the infrastructure for a private industry that threatens our grid stability. Please vote yes on the SB 205 to ensure that in Delaware, those who use most power pay their fair share. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter.
Hello. My name is Eunice Woodard, spelled Eunice Eunice, and Woodard Woodard. I'm a Newcastle resident, and Delmarva Power is also my supplier. I'm new to this, and all I know is that the rate hikes in my neighborhood has doubled, some even tripled. And it's hard for, especially those on fixed incomes or low-income families, the disabled, to pay these bills without sometimes maybe choosing which one to pay. If you're going to pay your electric, or are you going to buy food, or are you going to less expensive activities that you might want to do. This has been very devastating to a lot of the community members, and they have to go on assistance or ask for assistance in order to pay their bills, or they end up having to pay some of the bill and then pay as they go along, when before they know it, here's another bill already. And like I said, it's either twice as much or even sometimes it's more. So what I did is I drafted a letter, and I'm hoping that this letter will make you think or consider what this will do to the community. This letter is being presented to you with a heavy heart. As a senior citizen living on Social Security, I never imagined in this season of my life, after working hard for many years, I would be forced to choose between keeping the lights on or paying for basic necessities like food, insurance, and housing, making living look like survival. The recent increases in electric bills charges are simply unaffordable. The charges for delivery are outrageous. It's more than the bill for gas and electric. Living on a fixed income that does not change as utility rates increase. It feels as though large utility companies are raising prices without considering the devastating impact on the elderly, the disabled, and low-income households. That's including the data centers that they're thinking about building. What are we expected to do? Sit in the dark, go without heat or gas, skip meals, fall behind on other bills? These are not exaggerations. This is the painful reality many of us are now facing. I am saddened, discouraged, and deeply disappointed that those responsible for providing essential services appear disconnected from the hardship these increases are causing. Electricity is not a luxury. It is a necessity for survival, health, and safety. I am respectfully asking the board to take immediate action to review these rate increases and implement protections, caps, or relief programs. Even those that are able to pay these increases are becoming stressed because it squeezes the budget and leaves less for other expenses. We deserve fair pricing and consideration. Please hear the voices of the people who are struggling silently. We are doing the best we can to survive, but we cannot continue to spend nearly all of our income just to keep the lights on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter, please.
My name is Frank Miskowski, Miskowsky. I'm on Delmarva Power. I'm from Kent County. I've listened to all the ones that the ratepayers. It's gotten very expensive during this winter. What ratepayers are paying with the delivery charges to add a data center to tax our grid. It's going to make it worse for us. We're already paying 60% out of state for our power. It's going to be really tough for us to handle this in this state. We don't have the power here in this state for a data center this large. You mentioned states that giving it to other states. Well, here's a list that I've found: is Virginia residents, data center hubs are increasingly protesting and pushing for stricter sitting regulations near residential areas. Illinois, Governor Pritzker proposed a 2-year moratorium on tax incentives of new data centers to protect the power grid and consumer electricity prices. Pennsylvania, lawmakers are reconsidering generous tax breaks for data centers due to the concerns about energy usage and the cost of development. Maryland, Frederick, and Baltimore counties have imposed moratoriums and strict zoning to limit new construction. Arizona, municipalities are weighing restrictions based on water consumption, which I think this one here is about 12 million gallons a year. Minnesota passed a 1-year moratorium on large data centers, the first in the state to do so. Florida, legislation is advancing to restrict large-scale data centers as part of AI regulations with potential for local prohibitions. New York, proposed legislation includes phasing in 100% renewable energy requirements for data centers. I would provide some of that information that other states are having issues with it. And this state is a small state. It doesn't have the power for it. And from what I understand, the last article I read, the data center is looking to put its own substation in, not its own power plant, but it's a substation, and draw from the New Jersey nuclear power plant. That's what I last heard. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter in the room.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Keith Steck, Keithsteck. I live in Sussex County. Delmarva Power is my electricity provider. I'm also the president of the Delaware Coalition for Open Government, DELCOG for short. DELCOG is a nonpartisan, nonprofit focused on ensuring the public has access to government information and that government entities provide information that is important to residents of Delaware. I'm especially appreciative of the fact that this is an unlimited or untimed opportunity to speak. As some folks have already referenced, usually we're limited to 2, 3, maybe 4 minutes if we're lucky. So thank you for that concession. I'll begin by saying neither the public notice of tonight's session on the Commission's website nor the Delaware meeting calendar posting about tonight's meeting provides an agenda as required by Delaware's Freedom of Information Act, Title 29, Delaware Code, Chapter 100, subsections 1004 E2 and E6. Moreover, it likewise failed to post an agenda for last Wednesday night's workshop. I'm sorry I missed the opening. Maybe you gave an introduction. I'm not sure. I was locked out. I was at the front door maybe 1 or 2 minutes after 6. Both doors were locked. I don't know if others walked away out of frustration or not. I had the luxury of knowing that someone was here who I texted and was kind enough to come and let me in. I believe the doors have since been unlocked, but I don't know. That's not a very welcoming message to have the public locked out or a session asking for public comment. Maybe you explain whether or the commission will consider public comments as part of its decision-making on the matter. But according to the public notice about this message, there are 3 types of information gathering mechanisms you're using. One is public comment sessions, one is workshops, and one is evidentiary hearings. But the interesting thing about this, it says that the commission will make its decision, and I'm quoting, the commission will make its decision on this matter on the basis of the record evidence taken at the public evidentiary hearings. There is no reference at all that public session comments or information gleaned or obtained at the workshops will be considered. I think the commission owes clarification regarding that. They owe it to the public. We not only should have that information, we have a right to that information if those are going to be considered. If they're not, that says something about this commission's operation.
I will represent to you that the public comments are summarized and provided to the commissioners in a case like this.
Well, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, because usually we're not allowed to ask questions, but I'll ask the question.
Well, this is a public comment session. It's not supposed to be a dialogue, but
okay, then I'll frame this as a statement.
Okay.
The comments that are made here need to be read by the commissioners. Not just a summary of the comments, but the details. These folks who have spoken tonight, especially the people who are talking about their direct, immediate harm, their suffering as a consequence of higher and higher rates. You folks need to see and read those and understand them. It gets to a point I'm going to make later here where the public needs to be an integral part of the decision-making process and the consideration process. So going back to the point I made a minute ago about the need for the clarification of this kind of thing. I can't comment on the large load tariff proposal or what details are in it so far, but I can comment on the process to date. If the lack of providing the public with an agenda is any indication of the development of the tariff, we're all in trouble. The proposed large load tariff is limited to a class of individual electricity users that each consume an enormous amount of energy to date is problematic. But if early documents are any indication of how things are going, this tariff will not achieve the desired rate protections of residential and small business electricity consumers. That's not even getting into the discussion about the fact that this state really doesn't even have the capacity, the electricity capacity to support the operation of some of these mega or hyper data centers or other large users. Where is that electricity going to come from? No one seems to be asking this, and no one is explaining where it is going to come from because we don't have it. And relying on other states, such as Pennsylvania, that is in the process of trying to attract data centers to use its excess electricity production. If that happens, where is the electricity that Delaware needs right now going to come from, let alone where is it going to go to them? Right now, it's unclear what the large load tariff will look like in its final form, as it's still under development by this body. But the proposed draft filed on the statement filed on September 2nd, 2025, is vague at best and raised a number of red flags. For example, in writing this document, Delmarva Power did not get the document signed, nor did it identify the groups of players, including the public, who will have a role in determining the tariff. Maybe that wasn't the purpose, but it seems like something as fundamental as that should have included it. Further, it doesn't set up a framework for getting an effective tariff in place that protects residential and small business customers, nor does it set a time for achieving this. What that document did was to essentially say the process is all about Delmarva Power, and it criticized the Public Service Commission staff and the Office of the Public Advocate and their efforts to achieve some kind of working relationship and basis for creating the large load tariff. If that's not bad enough, this document goes on to challenge the authority of the Public Service Commission, and I'm quoting, other outside parties to direct the contents of a utilities tariff. My reading of this sentence alone is that Delmarva Power, will dictate to the commission what goes into the tariff. This is Delmarva Power being the tail wagging the tariff dog. That's just pure arrogance. I don't know if the commission, in fact, does not have this authority. And none of us may never know if that is the case or not. Did the commission's senior officials work with the governor's office and the General Assembly to obtain such authority if it doesn't have it? Do we know that? Is that something that will be publicly discussed or disclosed? That point needs to be clarified. If the commission does not have this authority, and it hasn't been granted, how will the state ever reach a point where it and its subsidiary components determine how to protect its citizens and businesses from outsiders coming in and telling Delaware residents and businesses what to do and what electricity rates we will have to pay Delmarva Power, or more correctly, how much its parent company will get from us, let alone dictate to large load users that they will have to bear the cost of providing their own electricity, related energy transmission costs, and associated fees and other expenses. Moreover, and more importantly, what role is the public going to play in all of this? To date, we residential customers and ratepayers are watching as our electricity bills go up and up and up. Part of these increases are the result of the tangled mess of agreements with other states through the PJM grid system and how their fees are borne by the various states in the PJM jumble, including the state of Delaware, and we, members of the public, the ratepayers. But future rates can be limited if the commission does its job and make sure it has the authority to do it by imposing conditions and rate restrictions on large load users. Such conditions can and should include ensuring that users provide their own power and pay the cost of getting energy to and from them instead of pushing those costs onto the shoulders of residents and small businesses. Further, there should be coordination among the Commission, the Public Advocate's Office, the General Assembly, and the Governor to reach consensus on these points with input from us, the rate-paying public. It's imperative that the public be heard and listened to. These folks have testified, the folks who are the ratepayers testified to the impact that current practices have on them. What will happen if a large operation like Starwood's Washington project comes into being and there are no restrictions placed on it? There are none in this state. There are none in the counties. There are none by local governments on larger operations like this. This is an unprecedented situation. It needs to be treated accordingly, not like some regular issue that comes up before this commission. Oh, and one last thing. Please get rid of that nonsensical and oxymoronic phrase, maximum monthly demand of 25 megawatts or greater. Why don't you just replace it with something simple like a threshold of 25 megawatts? Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter in the room.
Good evening. My name is Al Fidance. Fidance, F-I-D-A-N-C-E. I'm a resident of Newcastle County and reside in the city of Newcastle, Delaware, where I am fortunate enough to be a customer of the Municipal Services Commission for electricity. My last bill I looked at, my charge for electricity was $140, and which is, I believe, the second lowest rate in the state. But the distribution charge on that was $19, okay? And I've talked to other people who are Delmarva customers, and it's unbelievable. It is at least 1 or 2 times what their bill is. And whether that's part of that congestion pricing or whatever, I don't know. But the city buys its electricity through the Delaware Electric Cooperative, by whatever name that might be, but I'm pretty sure that's it. And so they're paying the wholesale price that a larger user would buy, and then they distribute it. And with that charge, they are able to maintain a very high service level in the city of Newcastle. They pay competitive wages and benefits, and their crews seem happy. And during the recent snowstorm, they also augmented with snow removal within the city. So they're able to do all that, plus kick in money to the city for additional things. So they're able to do that with the rate that they're getting, okay? And I understand that they're not paying, congestion fees and whatever else is tacked on there, but they're able to manage that, okay? And they've been good at it. And over the past few years, in the 40 years that I've lived there, they've gone from one old substation, they've modernized the facility at the city's expense or the commission's expense, and put in a second substation on a different feed, and have improved reliability a lot. We hardly ever have a problem with power delivery, and so I have to applaud them on that. But I'm also a Delmarva gas customer, and on a $121 gas charge, my distribution charge was $149, which exceeded the cost of the gas. And I know this isn't a meeting about gas, but I can see what it is. And Uh, Even though I live in the city of Newcastle, I have family and friends throughout the state. And I'm hearing from them what they're paying, and it is ridiculous.
Okay, well, we're here for the large load tariff.
Yes, okay, right. And as far as a large load carrier is concerned, look at Del Dot, okay? If somebody, I'm just going to use Walmart because everybody knows it. If Walmart's going to put something in, and they need 2 turn lanes going into their store, right? They are expected to carry that cost. That's the cost of doing business for them, all right? They don't say, well, you live within 2 blocks of that, you're going to pay that. You know, that's ridiculous. No. So the same thing is on these tariffs. We didn't ask for this, okay? Nobody here, well, maybe a couple, but nobody here has asked for it, right? But it looks like we're going to have to deal with it. And it's up to the commission, respectively, to take that into consideration, which has been asked by many here, to consider that. If they want to come here, then that's the cost of doing business. If they want to have all that power, then pay to have that power delivered to them. It's bad enough that we're going to have to compete on the market with them for the electricity itself, which is an increasingly tight commodity region-wide. PJM's got 24, I believe, plants that were applications were in to abandon them or idle them because of either inefficiencies or the age of them, many going back into the 50s. And through emergency action by the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, those plants have been told, no, you have to stay open for grid stability. So it's just not there, you know? 1 or 2 of them go down, it's going to be worse. And everybody says, oh, bring Indian River back. Well, you know, is it converted to gas? Well, then you got to run a gas line all the way down the peninsula. There's no other way to get to it. So that's not really going to be a solution. Delaware only gets 20% of its energy in state. So it all comes from other areas. As it was mentioned earlier, Pennsylvania exports energy, and they're starting to think about that. They're having second thoughts about that because their own rates are going up. So to have groups of investors, and people mention Bloom, and I will mention Medichem, who came here years ago to Delaware City, promising to clean up the old Standard Chlorine site out of their profits. They left the state on the hook for over $100 million in environmental cleanup costs, and the site is worse than when they got there. And they walked away. So investors are always going to try to do what they can do as cheaply as possible. And the hell with anybody else, unfortunately. So back to the tariffs. If they want it and they can get the energy, or they can do it in-house with their own energy, that's one thing. But to come here and expect us to pay for the build out of the system to be able to accommodate their hopes of investment glory, no, not for me. So thank you very much. I hope I'm staying within the lines here of addressing the committee and everything, the commissioner, but it's hard on a lot of people, okay? And I thank you all for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Next commenter in the room. Briefly, very briefly. I need to get to the people on Zoom.
Okay. I'll just take 1 minute. Name is Francis, and it's Gavis, Gavas. It seems like the elephant in the room is infrastructure and transmission and distribution. And this is a national problem. Delmarva Power isn't the only company that kicked this can down the road. But now we're at the point where we have to address it. And from a tactical perspective, at least, if I were coming into this state to promote a data center, I would probably want those infrastructure improvements in place before the data center went in. And even if they are planning to put it in, I'm curious if there was any kind of projections or scientific modeling that was done to basically say, okay, this is the issue, this is the tax it's going to put on the grid. What's it going to look like? Are we going to be able to deal with it? But that's just from a scientific perspective. It makes more sense to go into it cautiously and kind of run it as a pilot test rather to go into it ass first and basically install everything and hope that it comes out great. So, like I said, I'm just curious if there was any kind of pre-modeling done that would basically say, hey, this is what it's going to do. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Quick one.
This is Dale Swain again. One thing I forgot to note earlier, if there's concerns over whether or not the PSC has the authority to set their own tariff, which is important to do, why not just postpone the decision until House Bill 233 does pass? And if it is signed into law, which I understand the governor would sign that, it would give full authority for the PSC to set the tariff rate and to do all of what needs to be to make sure that the public is covered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, back onto the jobs that this warehouses, this hyperscale data centers. Oh, Rob Bullock again. Yeah, the big thing with the unions, which I'm for unions, all my life I've been a member of the union. But the thing is that Baltimore congressman has put in an ordinance in Congress to oppose nationwide the data centers. New Jersey has an ordinance that they are looking at to oppose the data centers. And so has Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania. So to say that if you don't build this data center, you're going to lose your jobs, our data centers are going to go to Baltimore, Jersey, or Pennsylvania, is just not true. It's not true. So for them to keep gaslighting the union membership and telling them that we ain't going to get no jobs and have them all angry to come down there, to come wherever to oppose the people, the residents who are against these data centers, is not appropriate. With gaslighting.
Okay, I've given everyone in the room their fair say. I'm going to turn to residents of Newcastle County now. And please put up raise your hand if you reside in Newcastle County and you'd like to make a comment on Zoom about large load tariff. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Richard Trask. I'm a resident of Newcastle County, and Delmarva is my electric provider.
Could you spell your name, sir?
It's Richard, R-I-C-H-A-R-D, Trask, T-R-A-S-K.
Okay, please go ahead.
Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club Delaware chapter. The chapter will be submitting formal written comments as well, but I will now provide a brief summary of some of our concerns with the proposed large load tariff. A well-developed tariff will offer large load customers increased clarity on costs associated with developing their projects in Delaware with more efficiency and certainty. Am I going too fast? Okay. If done correctly, Large load tariffs can establish safeguards that are urgently needed to help protect ratepayers in all customer classes from stranded asset risk and cost shifting. Unfortunately, the proposed tariff does not meet these needs. Key items missing from the proposal include, but are not limited to: 1. Minimum contract terms and early exit or termination fees to ensure that new large customers are committed to help pay down the costs of the new infrastructure. 2. Minimum charges based on anticipated and previously billed use to ensure that contracts and infrastructure to serve high-use baseload customers are recovered. 3. Must-buy provisions or restrictions on reduction of contracted capacity. 4. Key transparency requirements during the application process. 5. Adjustments in public benefit program contributions that are aligned with the impact of adding new large loads and their associated risks. 6. A mechanism for contributions toward a grid improvement fund. And 7. Incentives for demand management, renewable behind-the-meter generation, or utility use of behind-the-meter storage. It is also important that large load customers are required to adhere to transparent, consistent, and equitable standard tariff terms and not opt out of these protections through special contracts with utilities. Renaming the existing transmission user tariff with minor alterations should be rejected by the Commission. There are numerous examples of large load tariffs throughout the PJM region and across the country that we can look toward for positive examples. The Sierra Club Delaware chapter will submit written comments before the deadline. We look forward to working with the Commission and its staff, the Public Advocate, Delmarva, and other stakeholders to ensure there are proper protections in this new tariff. Thank you very much and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next commenter from Newcastle County. Hello, can you hear me?
I can go.
Michael?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Yes. Hello. My name is Michael Amos, spelled Michael Amos. I'm a resident of Newcastle County, and I'm a customer of Delmarva Power. I have been my entire time. I've been paying my own living expenses. I'm a lifelong Delaware resident. I expect to raise my family here. And in my area specifically, there have been a lot of proposals for new large load customers mere miles from my house. I apologize for not being here in person. My daughter was born 3 days ago, so I have to budget my time, and I hope that helps underscore how important this issue is to me. So I'm happy to be able to at least join virtually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've worked in IT my entire career, including data center procurement. So a lot of the issues surrounding these things are sort of close to my heart, and they feel very personal in terms of some of the work that I've done. Generally speaking, we're expected to pay for our utilities, what we hope is a reasonable rate. Sometimes they go up. They don't really ever go down, not in a lasting way. And there are a lot of things that factor into those rate hikes. Some may be more justified than others, but they should never be used to subsidize what could be millions of dollars of operational spend for large businesses that are really, they're here for a reason. They're here to make money. And the reason that a lot of businesses come here are to take advantage of some of the regulations and the laws that we have. we're providing incentives for these businesses to come here, and those should provide an economic benefit to our state. They shouldn't be taking advantage of us. It could be, things like that could be mutually beneficial in a lot of ways. And they should never really be in here to make a quick buck. They should be held to the same standards that we are, which is to pay reasonable rates and to shoulder the burden of what we're asking of the system and asking of our infrastructure. Hyperscale data centers are the most power hungry structures we could probably be building here in this state. And it's no real secret that currently AI companies aren't profitable. They don't expect to be for a long time. 2 days ago, OpenAI, who developed ChatGPT, which is probably the most well-known AI product right now, they projected an additional $112 billion in additional cash burn through 2030. So they were already not profitable and don't plan to be anytime soon, but they just announced that, over $100 billion in additional spending would be happening, making them significantly less profitable than people expected them to be. Inside of those data centers sit hundreds of millions of dollars of rapidly depreciating hardware assets that need to be replaced fairly quickly in order to stay competitive and useful. They're powering what is currently kind of a bloated, unprofitable industry that, while could show benefits, is not really, we're not really at that point currently. And businesses like theirs they're sort of anticipating that small states like ours will be throwing our doors open, hoping for some amount of economic benefit for them to come in. And so while we're not specifically discussing data centers, even though I think we all know that this is largely what these proposals are about, the customers like theirs, they demand so much of our infrastructure, to the point where their mere existence basically requires infrastructure to be designed, planned, and built around them. Any upgrades, any changes, everything basically needs to factor in their existence. According to a 2024 report published by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Delaware uses significantly more energy than it produces. I think we've heard that a couple times tonight already. And having a gigantic customer coming in and putting additional strain on that, they're basically going to monopolize decision making related to infrastructure changes and improvements in the area. There have also been a lot of comments tonight, or some comments praising the economic boom or the employment opportunities that will reap as a result of some of these construction projects. And my comments are going to mirror what some of the other responses to that were, which is data centers have an extremely low employment density. Once construction is finished, they require minimal staffing to operate. And so what looks like an appealing economic boom at first quickly basically turns into a desert of opportunity for all of us here that are looking to stay here and have careers here and raise our families here. The buildings will rapidly become automated job wastelands that really just drain a lot of local resources and offer us not much in return, because the products that they're producing are things that are used internationally, and all we are at this point is an asset to them. And where Delmarva factors into this is Exelon and Delmarva are for-profit companies. They have a direct incentive to bring these gigantic customers here because that's going to make them some more money. They would be the largest single customer. Any of these data centers that get built would be the largest single customer in our area. In cases like that, we as residents have very little leverage in what we can do. Those data centers, us as residents, we need electricity without exception. We need to keep the lights on. We need to keep AC running, heat running. We need to live our lives. And we shouldn't have to watch a power company bend over backwards at the residents' expense in the hope that some future economic relief would offset their ballooning energy costs. Delmarva should have absolutely no say in deciding how much we as residents pay for our electricity rates. If they're going to be controlled and governed by some section of, or at least in part, some section of the Delaware government, they should not be able to tell us how much we should pay. We should not be continually shouldering burdens of infrastructure upgrades that that the only incentive that Delmarva has to do those is to make more money themselves. I don't generally support the construction of new AI data centers in this state, and that's really not, again, not the direct focus of this hearing. We all know that this is what this is related to. So while I don't support those, we have to at least guarantee that if these are to be built within the scope of what this hearing is to address, if one of these data centers were to be constructed, we would have to guarantee that any decisions that are made in relation to these tariffs to allow these large load customers to hook up to our grid, that they will not raise our own rates by a single penny at the absolute least. And really, being such an economic drain as they are currently, if anything, if they're expecting to burn that amount of money to continue operating, they should be at the very least offering subsidies back to residents if they're going to monopolize our power grid, dictate where improvements are going to be made, and really draw the map for how infrastructure changes are made around the state. I don't want to take up too much time. I know I've been waiting a long time, so anyone that comes after me has been waiting longer. So I really appreciate the time, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Next commenter in Newcastle County.
Hi, my name is Janice Talley. I am a 12th generation Delawarean, actually from Talleyville, Delaware. Been here a long time.
Please spell your name.
Talley, Ann Talley. Newcastle County, Delmarva is my provider. And I just want to give you a little background about myself. I have attended universities in Delaware. I have a master's in systems administration. I am a technical program manager, and I have experience working in a data center for over 7 years in Delaware, a data center in Newark. I can tell you that we ran a 67,000 square foot data center on less than 100 people, and only one guy worked overnight. Everybody else went home. Everything is automated. Alerts would go out if there was an issue. In Delaware, I know my power bill has more than doubled since last year. I was on the Senate hearing committee in January where I learned that last year in 2024, 2025, we were paying $29 megawatts per day. 2025-26 was $269 megawatts per day. So huge increase in the cost of Delaware obtaining power from other places. I also want to go back to the data center I worked in. I can tell you that most of them did not live in Delaware. Only 2 of us lived in Delaware. So talk about school taxes. Only 2 of us were paying school taxes in Delaware. Most of the other people worked in Pennsylvania or lived in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and we had almost half of our staff from India. So you have remote workers that will take some of these high-paying technology jobs. They will not necessarily be Delawareans. Even the construction jobs will not necessarily be Delawareans. The construction companies will bid on these jobs. They will they will have workers come from surrounding states to come and do these jobs. And a data center takes 2 to 3 years to build, not 10. So I don't know where that data is coming from or who's telling you that, but it's not right. There is really basically no efficiency of scale here for these data centers. The top 5 risks are water and power, the cost for the residents, for both the financial costs as well as health, and then very few humans required to run the facilities. They are, I can say water, like we've all experienced a very high amount of heat last summer. We were having a really hard time, asking to be not use a load on the system during, peak hours and so forth and so on. Well, data centers, they have to cool all those servers. So all those servers require a lot of water, 1 million to 100 million gallons a month of water to cool these data centers. So there is an environmental impact that is just huge. I really would encourage the PSC to work with the Sierra Club to look at, really the impacts beyond, the electricity that's used to run all that water, to cool all those. And then another gentleman spoke before me about the equipment. Well, I can tell you absolutely, those servers are all trashed within 3 years. It's a massive amount of waste and trash. I'm not sure that our landfills can handle the trash that would come from the servers that are required to keep this data. And then the other thing that we haven't really talked about, the ethical thing, is that, I ran my TransUnion credit report today before coming to tonight's meeting, so that I would really give everyone some perspective on what data is being kept in these data centers, right? So I don't know about you, but I would encourage all of you to run your TransUnion credit report and get a deep web search. Mine came up with 31 different data centers maintaining my personal information, my name, my address, my social security number. 31 data centers, right? Or 31 data sources. Now, every data source has redundancy, so they'll have multiple data centers where that data would go from one place to another in the event of an outage. So the PSA, you really have a great job here, an opportunity to put guardrails around and any building that does occur in Delaware. Our residents, we need water, we need electricity to survive, and those things, we can't live without them. So we need them first and foremost. And any infrastructure and any costs and any idea that any company would come into Delaware and use our water and our electric, they need to be secondary, and they need to pay a reasonable fee that covers not just the cost of it for actual, water and electricity for the facilities, but what is the cost to our community? Like, where, are we going to have enough water in our reservoirs when we go through a drought? Because we may not have enough electricity for our people to stay cool in their homes, because that, are they going to be considered to be like a hospital? Are they going to come in and say, well, our data is most important and we have to be prioritized to get to get electricity or water off the grid, right? Well, they should not take precedent over, the people, right? Our citizens in Delaware. They shouldn't take precedent over our medical facilities. They are required to have these things, but data, they can fail over to other places. They have other options. But so please, when you consider like not only the rate increases, but where do they get, how do they come in line with, our priorities in Delaware? So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next commenter in Newcastle County.
Hi, my name is Monica Seeley, Monica Seeley, Celli. I'm from Newcastle County, and my company is Delmarva. So these weak, half-hearted attempts at regulation just to make it look like you tried aren't good enough. We need realistic regulation based on analysis of the actual impact of the proposed projects. We need to study the impacts of data center developments in other locations, and we need to act accordingly. The venture capitalists and billionaires, they aren't concerned with how harmful their projects are to residents, the environment, or society in general. Their only concern is profit and the return on their investments. Because of this, they'll try to rush the process, pressure us to try to make this happen quickly so they can slide by without any proper regulations and have the public foot as much of the bill as possible. We've already seen this strategy with Starwood filing exploratory plans right before Newcastle County would consider new rules to restrict development, barring the imposition of new rules. Most recently, they've been proceeding with building a substation while they appeal the rezoning decision, moving forward as if this is already a done deal. They didn't even bother to show up today. They need us more than we need them. In 2025, there was a 125% increase in data center opposition, with data centers in New Orleans and New Brunswick, New Jersey being canceled. Maryland has created multiple analysis groups, and New Jersey has introduced legislation to impose a surcharge on data centers. As people have said earlier, this investment is not a guarantee. There was a nonpartisan nonprofit watchdog. They found that at least 10 out of 32 states with data centers lost more than $100 million per year in tax revenue because of tax exemptions. Businesses have been reporting losses after integrating AI into their operations as well. Quick policymaking, this is often proven to be ineffective, harmful, and produces collateral consequences. This issue isn't going anywhere, so we need to be careful and thorough with how we proceed. This is a rare bipartisan issue. The only ones who are against regulation and doing this correctly are those who stand to gain something from it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next commenter from Newcastle County. Christopher.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Jamison, Chrisistopher, Jamison, Jamison. I am a Newcastle County resident. My provider is Delmarva. I grew up here. I've lived here almost my entire life. There's been a lot of great comments. I would like to comment on a couple of the things that have been said. To start with, I would like to commend Delmarva for actually coming up with a proposal for this tariff. Unfortunately, it's just woefully inefficient. And this represents something that every person here has seen throughout their entire life, which is that if you allow industry to try to govern itself or to try to regulate itself, the only people that profit are the industry. They should have no say in this. Neither should Starwood. Neither should anybody else coming in and proposing any project that would fall under a high energy tariff. The reason why is because they're going to propose something that is good for them and is not great for the rest of us. The PSCs should be coming up with the tariff themselves and telling the industries exactly what we expect of them. What we should expect of them at the very minimum is that everything that needs to be done, any type of upgrades, any type of upkeep, anything that's added to be on them in perpetuity, not on a 1-year basis, not on a 10-year basis. And if they decide to leave, if they go belly up, which we know might happen with the AI industry, we've seen that happen with other industries that came in here. If they decide to leave us with infrastructure that they can't upkeep, they still need to pay for that. So they should pay for it up front. It shouldn't be a contract that goes over time. They need to have that money up front. As for the union reps that have been here, we see them in almost all of our town halls and all of our meetings. And I want you to know that before I move on from this, I support unions. I've never worked for one. I realize that because we have worker protections in this country because of what unions have done. But unions represent a single issue special interest. And that is, in this situation, they're saying, hey, this is going to provide us guaranteed jobs for a certain amount of time, which is true, and we should all support that. The problem is that's as far as they care. They don't care what kind of job it is. They don't care if there's an environmental impact. They don't care if it's impacting the people. And the reality is, if we don't build data centers, we're still having construction projects for them. So we can still support them. They'll still have jobs. We're not going to stop building anything, right? We don't need the data centers. The other issues that we have, a lot of people have been suggesting that we should force these data centers or these large load places to create their own power. The data center industry itself has overpromised how many jobs they've had. They've been unable to make large data centers that don't hum and cause environmental issues. They haven't been able to accurately tell us how much power or water they use. If we think that they can be trusted to create their own power without causing environmental impact, I think we will be sorely mistaken. I would like to see them pay for whatever new energy generation is created, but they shouldn't be in charge of it because they're a large for-profit entity that we already know we can't trust. I don't really have a whole lot more just because the last few commenters have been really fantastic. So I want to thank the three people that came before me from Zoom. You guys were great. I hope that this goes a long way to have the PSC put a pause on this, support HB 233, because most of what we actually need is in that bill. And then going forward, our legislature should look at that as a starting point, not an ending point. We still need to regulate this industry. We can start with our energy generation regulations, but we need to regulate it for environmental impact. We need to regulate it for humming, for the impact that it has on people's health through humming. We need to regulate the impact it has on jobs. Every time that I'm in an industry, I'm in a tech industry, and I'm seeing a lot of AI turn into people losing their jobs. Every time we automate a new job, there's many jobs lost. So right now, all of our dev teams are in India, which is going to happen with the AI industry, as with the data center industry as well. So they're not paying to help our communities. And then those teams are integrating AI into everything that I do, and I'm watching everybody around me get fired. So there's not an economic job boom with these. There is job loss with these. So we also need to regulate that as well so that Americans aren't stuck jobless, homeless, and hungry. So a couple tech billionaires become very rich, which they already are. So thank you all for giving us time. I will cede to the next person. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next commenter from Newcastle County. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Susan Downs, spelled Susandownes. I'm from Newcastle County, and I have Delmarva Power. I am a grandmother, self-employed, and soon to be retired. I am leery of the proliferation of mega data centers and the out-of-control costs and effects associated with them. So I am here tonight to recommend that the PSC reject Delmarva Power's current proposal and instead work to craft stronger protections for Delaware ratepayers in light of the mega data center development. From a report issued by the Environmental and Energy Program at Harvard Law in March 2025, I quote, "The traditional utility business model of decades-long cost recovery of new utility-owned plants through consumer rates is not designed to address near-term tripling of a utility's demand due to just a few giant energy-guzzling warehouses," end quote. And on the PSC website, I noticed an article describing existing facilities using 25 megawatts as considered large load. But the Delaware City proposal would be 50 times that at 120 megawatts at full operation. That is almost half the power used by the entire state in the summertime. Couple that with an occasional hurricane or a heat wave, and that scale could cripple Delaware's energy supply. The Public Service Commission, and I stress service, needs to be dedicated to serving the needs of Delaware ratepayers and not the wishes of big tech and big power companies who have more resources than the average Delawarean. The PSC needs to address termination fees, contract lengths, special rates designs, all things outlined in the HB 233 for the large load tariffs to ensure that these large companies with their large footprints in our community are paying their fair share. Thank you for the chance to comment this evening.
Thank you. Next commenter in Newcastle County.
Hi, my name is Ligia Aceves, Ligiaacebes from Newcastle. Delmarva is my energy provider, and I'm here to urge your support for House Bill 233. While the Public Service Commission took a great first step in requiring a specific rate class for large loads, the current tariff proposed by Delmarva Power is essentially a renamed existing rate that offers no real protection for Delaware families. My monthly bill has more than doubled. Data centers are a multi-trillion-dollar industry with energy demands that could easily overwhelm our grid. Despite this, Delmarva Power's proposal lacks the guardrails that have become a standard in other states. Specifically, it fails to include exit early fees to protect us if a data center goes bankrupt, long-term contract requirements to prevent fly-by-night operations, infrastructure guarantees to ensure that data centers, not residents, pay for the massive grid upgrades they require. This House Bill 233, modeled after successful legislation like Oregon's Power Act, ensures that these massive energy users pay their fair share. It addresses the 2,000 megawatt threat currently facing our state by protecting affordability, requiring these large loads to pay more into the low-income energy fund, climate accountability, ensuring data centers contribute to our clean energy goals rather than undermining them. And of course, transparency, moving away from the backdoor deals and non-disclosure agreements that have left residential ratepayers footing the bill in other states. We are asking for the same common sense protections our neighbors are already adopting, and to ensure that as the data center industry grows, the energy bills of Delaware families do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter in Newcastle County.
Hi, my name is Kina Hamilton. My name is spelled Kina, last name Hamilton. A lot of those who have spoken before me already addressed some very alarming concerns. And I hope that it is felt as this is a crisis. It is a crisis across the state of Delaware. What I have not heard thus far is what happens when families just cannot afford to pay. So we've discussed the infrastructure costs and the rising utility bills, and we discussed the disadvantages in reference to air quality or energy usage. But what happens when families cannot afford to pay? What long-term safeguards are in place to prevent compounding the crisis of unpaid bills or system deficits onto paying customers, similar to what happened during the housing crisis? When that collapsed, that debt was redistributed to taxpayers. Also, has the state conducted a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis comparing the project long-term job creation, which this is being promoted as, and tax revenue against potential impacts such as the increased rates that we are seeing now, the grid strain, and also the water consumption that it's going to take for the facility to be ran and the environmental effects. In addition, with the increasing demand from the data centers, what projections exist that residential customers will not have to face a reliability constrained capacity, where we're not able to receive electricity just because a data center is near us. We are not able to receive water consumption because a data center is near us. So while this forum is about the rate hikes as well as what you guys have to discuss as an organization, what I'm not hearing is our day-to-day impact. How are you safeguarding those as well? I'm sorry, I yield my.
This is a public comment session. The public makes comments and then for the record. It's not a dialogue. It's just as the name of it denotes. It's just a public comment session. We do it as a public service to hear from the public, and the public's comments are summarized for the commissioners. So, do you want to continue your public comment?
I'm sorry, I yield my time. I wanted what my statement, so I don't know if it was because it came across as a question, but I did want that recorded for the public. I want that to be considered.
It's recorded. I just thought you were asking a question.
No, I wasn't. I was just recording. I just was making or wanted that statement to be recorded. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next commenter from Newcastle County.
Good evening. My name is RJ Miles, Miles. Very good comments tonight that I've heard so far. If you Google, why would Delaware make a good place for a data center? The primary thing that lists is it's very near co-location to a fiber optic backbone that serves the eastern United States. It doesn't mention anything about being co-located near power sources. So it would be much more affordable to provide co-location of a large a large electrical user near generation, and then give them a fiber optic cable to that location than it would be to build here in Delaware, affecting our power grid rates, and require a new, 5,000 kilowatt line or kilovolt line from Salem or someplace else at a much higher cost. So I appreciate everyone's comments. Delaware is not the best place for a gigawatt data center. We're not the best place to try to build new energy that's based on renewables. The worst thing we could do is be a bad neighbor to others in the grid of PJM or PMJ, that if we give away the store, everyone else will suffer if we lower our standards. We should maintain the high standards that Virginia has learned it had to be put in place. The 13 governors that make up our entire grid are trying to put common sense legislation into place to protect residents. Someone mentioned how Starwood, the project, seemed to front run the Newcastle County Council legislation 25101. This proposed tariff seems to front run state legislation in the same way. The industry is trying to put something out front to prevent or to undermine the necessity for greater guardrails to protect the grid and citizens within our state. See it for what it is. The industry trying to self-regulate in a way that might not be as effective or have long-term impact that the House bill or the Senate bill currently under consideration would provide for citizens. So while this offer by the industry is nice, I think that we should focus on saying no to the tariff and yes to state and county regulations that might better protect and have long-term impact for the community. Thank you to everyone who participated. You have a good evening.
Thank you. Next commenter from Newcastle County.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Hilton. I'm from Newcastle. I use Delmarva Power. Can you hear me?
Okay, can you spell your name, please?
Hylton, Cynthia, Cynthia. I just make it real quick. I oppose of these mega data centers. I don't think Delaware is ready for anything like this, and I think everyone in Delaware should be thought of first. I think our politicians need to be aware of that, and just be there for the people. That's what it's all about. We're the ones who suffer, and I just want to put my 2 cents in on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next commenter from Newcastle County. Okay, I don't see any other commenter from Newcastle County. Next commenter, this time from Kent County. Any commenter from Kent County that's on Zoom? Okay. I'm not
Bobby
sure. Bobby?
Yeah, Bobby Murrian, Murrian, IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 313. Appreciate everybody's comments. A lot of misinformation out there. I'm not going to explain construction to everybody out there and how things work, and that we've had over 60 people in 2 data centers for the past 20 years. Among the other 20 we have in the state of Delaware. And the two lines we have coming over from Hope Creek already, don't have a concept of what's going on as far as this is. This is supposed to be intervening session for the large load tariffs. So I'll just keep it to that. I'm not going to make any more comments other than I will make my written comments before the deadline. Think everybody needs to focus on what this was supposed to be about. I think Delmarva is putting something, or DPNL is putting something together to help save the ratepayers any kind of burden, and we need to move this thing forward, right? The moratorium on this, interconnection needs to be lifted, and we need to move this thing forward. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there any commenter from Kent County that wishes to make a comment? Okay. I don't see one. Is there any commenter from Sussex County? I don't see one. Okay, now I'm going to go to each county. Is there any other commenter from Newcastle County or Kent County? Kent County or Sussex County? Okay. Stephanie?
You muted, girl.
Oh, okay. Amy. Hello.
Hello,
Good evening.
Hello, thank you. My name is Amy Kyle, Amy Kyle, short, short name. And I appreciate this opportunity to hear from everyone. I've learned a lot here that I didn't know about this before. And one thing I would like to ask the chairman is if the transcript will be released so that we have a record of the testimonies here. I know you have a court reporter, so there will be a transcript, and I would like to request access to that because I think some of these personal testimonies of people are really powerful and important, and sometimes hard to capture in a government proceeding.
I'm not sure about that at this point.
Well, may I ask you to consider it?
Oh, I'll consider it. It's just that there are 10 parties involved in this case, and there are different considerations, but I'll consider it.
Okay, well, I'm just asking for the transcript, nothing, beyond that,
Okay.
So, I after listening to all the testimony, I agree with the recommendations of the people saying that this should not go forward in its current form as proposed. It seems that it would be important to get the legislation passed so that there's more authority available for the PSC to be able to take action. But the issues seem to go even beyond that, don't they? And I think maybe just a step back to understand really the magnitude of the impacts of this and how hard it's going to be to make it fair. If you have a elephant on one hand and a little chick on the other hand, it's hard to make it fair. So more thinking about that and what's really going to be necessary, I think will help the people and help the decision makers here also grapple with the magnitude of what these impacts could be. I agree with all the comments that the proponents of the project should be bearing the costs up front. And my major concern is that what someone raised, that the AI market and economics may crash. I mean, there's a whole discussion in the investment community about whether this is going to be successful or not successful, and it might not be. And some people are starting to bet against it even now. So that's a huge amount of risk, and the public can't assume that risk in any form. And so the costs here need to be paid up front. And I would suggest that also exit costs should be funded up front, in that if they build these big facilities and then go out of business, the equipment in data centers has a lot of toxics in it. And somebody mentioned that it not only at the end, but as it's operating, that the equipment is renewed and replaced to keep up to date. It is a matter of number of fingers on one hand kind of years, not 10 years. I think the speaker said 3 years. That's a huge quantity of toxic stuff that will have to be managed coming out of these facilities if they go forward. And I think that should also be considered. So not all these issues are under the jurisdiction of the PSC, of course, and I realize that. But we seem to be in an institutional environment where nobody's really in charge of this at all or fully. And I think it would be appropriate for the PSC also to speak about the important issues that are raised that are not under your jurisdiction and that have to be addressed by the legislature or the states that are in our grid management organization as well. I would also like to bring up the issue of health effects from emissions in the context of developing power sources. There's support by some for the proponents to develop their own power sources, and some people have raised some issues about that. And I would just like to add to that the concern that if that becomes part of this, that someone needs to make sure that, especially non-renewable combustion sources, if used, which really shouldn't be used, that the emissions are controlled and that this doesn't become kind of an off-book kind of a development that's outside the normal regulatory structures. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say is that, I've worked on some energy related issues in other states, and I think it's fair to say, and I don't mean to be rude or anything in saying this, but the institutional environment that's affecting Delaware with regard to the grid it's not good. It's backward and it's not making progress, and it hasn't done things to upgrade the grid and to prepare for safer, more renewable energy and to address climate change and reduce the cost of emission of energy overall in the way that some places have. And I just raise that to say it could be better. This can be managed a lot better than it has been, and then people might be able to plug in their solar development as can be done in California now, for example. And I know there are a lot of complexities with that, but I wonder if also this community of interest can be working even more than it has been to push forward reforms for better management of the power generation context that affects us in Delaware. So I thank you very much for this opportunity to speak and also for letting people speak in their own time so that we can really hear what they think rather than have them rush through a statement that has to be read in 1 minute. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any remaining comments on Zoom? Linda Harris.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I want to talk about my main concern is an imbalance possibly in the whole process where like the executives, corporate counsel from Delmarva, PJM are given extensive time to present their case. But while the public who have to deal with all these bills and suffer, it seems to be rather limited. It feels like the system often provides large companies with advantages or protections that ordinary residents just do not have. And we cannot afford any more costs thrown at us. Mine has doubled. I'm on Social Security. I'm walking around with a cold nose, cold hands, having trouble breathing, cold air. I'm doing all I can. We can't have any more costs. These data centers have to be covered, not by the residents at all. And I also have past experience. I worked in legal field for 30 years as a legal assistant, paralegal, but I know how the corporate lawyers operate. I know how company structures, their arguments are influenced with decision making. That's their job. They know how to influence. We don't. the little public shows up and, we stutter. Right now I'm got, sweaty hands. I'm a nervous wreck. We are not lawyers. We have to have equal time. We have to also feel like we're heard. And also, Delmarva and PJM, they have the resources to manage their own costs. I could not pass my bills on to anybody else. If I get a bill, if I get a ticket, if I get fined, hey, neighbor, pay for my bill, please. Pay for my ticket. They have to deal with their own stuff. My Social Security went up 2.6%. And how does that compare with the increase in profit that these companies are reporting? From a human standpoint, who really bears the burden of these costs? Corporations and the shareholders, or the Delaware families? It's obvious. And I really urge, I need the commission. I hope they read this. I have tried to reach out to them, the ombudsman. It's been rather difficult, but I think we, the public who are dealing with this, not the billionaires, not Delmarva, that, we're worried about, oh gosh, the shareholders, excellent shareholders, they might be mad at us. We got to make sure we get a profit. No, we are dying here. We are trying to survive. I am freezing. I'm sitting here with 2 coats on. You can't see me. But, and also, lastly, the commission has to ensure that the realities facing the residents carry as much weight, if not more, than the corporate interests. In my view, we are blameless, yet we are being asked to bear the costs of regulatory failure, policy fallout, systemic mismanagement, and possibly, I have to say it, corporate greed. I mean, who really suffers when these rates go up? I have a feeling Delmarva and PJM will survive, but will we? The end. Thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. Any remaining public comments on Zoom?
Hi, I would like to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, Stephanie.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Royal, and I wanted to make a statement. In the state of Texas, there is a ranch called the GW Ranch, which is right now powering large-scale data centers. Are you aware of this ranch, sir? Because it goes against everything that your companies are trying to push off on the residents here in Delaware. It is actually solar and naturally gas powered. So rather than even investing in further infrastructure for your company, which has blatantly allowed its residents to take on the costs, in doing so, you talk about companies, they need to make sure that they are actually taking on the costs to put in an infrastructure for these data centers. The data centers could come in and on the second lot that they are proposing, actually put in a solar and natural gas farm and also utilize the wind farms that are being put offshore downstate off of Ocean City, which is where that international cable comes into. The reason that all of this is happening now and the reason that our politicians are getting behind it, companies want to get this done so that residents are bearing the costs. That's the bottom line. Starwood Digital is coming in. They are simply here for the build. And I heard someone from the union, I'm actually a union member as well, talk about the jobs created. I'm a hiring manager. I understand what creating 200 jobs is, but those paychecks are not going to go very far when you're talking about the increased costs that we have when it comes to water, the infrastructure build for these data centers, and the increased costs in electricity. Residents are suffering, and we are your constituents, not industrial companies that want to come in and utilize our environmental assets here in Delaware. We have few to spare. Starwood Digital is not going to maintain this property. They are going to lease it out to billionaire corporations. Delmarva Power is not going to give any of the residents any 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 you know benefits from gaining access to the monies that of corporate industry like Starwood venture capitalists would bring in and increase their profitability. We're not going to see any of that. We're going to see increased rates. Residents should not have to bear the cost to promote these infrastructures for these companies to come in. We're already bearing the costs to take care of ourselves. Why would we invite someone else in that's going to triple our costs when there are other options available? GW Ranch in Texas is another option, but unfortunately, that doesn't raise your profitability, sir. It doesn't, but it may be an option that would help the residents. And everybody fighting Starwood, yes, they want to come in, they want to build this, large scale data center, but there are other companies that want to come into Delaware as well. Starwood is just the initial. They are going to lease out these buildings as quickly as they come in, probably within 3 years. And then they're not going to be responsible for anything that happens after that. It's going to be the company that they lease it to. They are simply trying to come in, take advantage of the tax benefits and all of the benefits that residents are providing by working off their backs. That's pretty much all I have to say, but I would ask everybody to Google the GW Ranch in Texas. It is an alternative way for Starwood or other digital data centers to come in and not have to push the additional costs off onto the residents of the state that they're attempting to come into.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments that are on Zoom? Okay, hearing none, I want to thank everybody on Zoom for your public comments, and I want to thank everybody in the room for your public comments. I think it's been very informative, and everybody drive carefully tonight, and good night. Thank you.